Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. So the topic of my today's presentation, let's be honest, today's teachers under pressure. Most of the presentation will come from my own experience, and just let me begin. So I entered this classroom full of students. I usually look forward to seeing my students. There is something, about meeting a group of people who are waiting for you, who are waiting for the class. But when the class starts and when I turn around and then turn back to my students, this is something that I see. Their laptops open, they're working on something, and this is certainly not something related to the class. They are just being busy. They are focusing on what they are doing. And I can hear somebody whispering to a person sitting next to them and saying, I just need to finish this now. This needs to be sent. So they're not doing this because they are rude or because they do not care, but just because something at that very moment seems much more urgent or much more real to them than the class itself, than the class that I am conducting. And I've been teaching for almost 20 years. I've been teaching the management students and the so-called soft subjects like psychology in business, organizational behavior, or negotiations and communication. And this is exactly my perspective, teaching the subjects that supposedly are the ones that are closer to real life. And I have noticed some changes over the years. And today I would like to tell you about those aspects that actually put pressure on teachers. One thing that I've noticed is that it used to be that students sometimes would ask this question. They would ask, but what is the point of this? Why are we doing this? What's the sense? How can this be useful? And currently, they are not asking this question much more. And I'm just wondering why this is the case. They used to push back more, they used to demand more. And it meant also that even though sometimes it was frustrating, to me, it meant that they cared about something beyond the material. And I'm asking myself, maybe they're too busy doing whatever they are doing on their laptops. Maybe to an extent they accepted things as they are, or maybe there is something else, something I have not figured out yet. Uh, I don't have a definite answer, but with you today, I would like to share three challenges, the ones again that put teachers under pressure, and a proposal as well. But proposal consists of four parts. Let me start with the challenges as I see them. So the first one, this is something that I call the reality gap. And the question is, where does real life happen? And this is probably the question that my students ask themselves. I ask myself this question as well. And I have come to think over the years that to them, most often, real life is not something that is happening at the university. Real life is certainly their work, and this is understandable. Real life is certainly the beginning of their professional career, something that they need to take care of, especially today at the times when junior positions are becoming more and more scarce. To them, probably real life are also social media, like Instagram, like TikTok. Something is going on there. To them, maybe some of them even like computer games are real life. And I believe that university is not that much of a real life to them, with its own logic, with its own structure, with its own idea, and with its own grades. And I believe that something natural that people do is that they engage their resources, their time, and their attention to something that actually is a real life. Let me tell you about an example of a student. I ran into her recently. She used to be the student that I taught, and I remembered her well. So we were chatting for a while, and at some point of time, she said casually, the thing is that university just doesn't trend anymore. And I've been thinking about this sentence ever since, not because it upset me, but because I believe that to a great extent, she was actually right. With its logic, with the structure, with what is going on at the university, it just doesn't seem real. And at the same time, students, they come here and they already have some of their work experience. So usually the experience comes, for instance, from junior positions in the corporate world or in organizations. But also some of them are sport trainers. Some of them, for instance, have some experience being waiters, warehouse operatives. So these are like those entry-level job experiences, and their experience is real. So when they study management, they saw some good management, they saw some bad management, sometimes real dysfunctions, and they want to discuss it. So every time we talk about leadership styles or decision making, they are interested in that. And they have their very strong opinions. And at the same time, I have this feeling that the real experience that they have and the classroom world just rarely speak to each other. And the reason for that is that we are not teaching students how to be good at the junior or entry level position. And honestly speaking, most of them, they will not be managing other people at a senior level for years. Probably for a few years, they will not even be managing people from a position of a team leader. So in a way, what we are talking about and what they expect, because it might help them solve their real life issues, there's a mismatch between those issues. And this is one of the reasons why what they encounter here is not real life. I have this saying that in a way, it's like giving people a recipe for a meal that they have never tasted and they will not taste for some time at least. So the recipe may be excellent. It may not be as good as we would like it to be. That's also possible, but it's something distant and something abstract in a way. Another dimension to also this challenge, and this challenge that I call the reality gap, is related to how students sometimes engaged in activities during classes. And honestly speaking, I do not blame them in any way for that. But sometimes when I have a team task and I observe them and I see how they collaborate, how they talk to one another, how they share roles and how they communicate, I think to myself, if I saw people working like that at a development center in a business organization, and if I was the one who was assessing their competencies, I would certainly give them very low scores. Like they wouldn't stand a chance of being selected to a talent development program, not in a lifetime. But this is not because they are weak, but this is because being here at a class at the university just doesn't seem real to them. So they don't put their full selves into that. And this is something that I believe puts us under pressure. The second issue and the second challenge, and I call it the understanding gap, where knowledge is everywhere, but understanding, on the other hand, is not. With AI, we've got all the gates wide open, knowledge with the click of your fingers, the answers are there, but the process and understanding, well, it seemed to devaluate itself a lot. Like people are not interested very much. Just let me give you an example, a concrete example coming from my class. I designed a case study based on real events, and this is a case study where a situation unfolds. And for students, it's a bit of a detective story with discovering what happened when, what decisions were made by the actors, what was the logic of events. And what some of them do, they paste the entire text of the case study, they put it into the chat box, and they say, okay, so we have an answer. So they have the knowledge and they have an answer, and it may be a fine answer, but there is no understanding involved on the way. We have just got the complete answer, but also what happens is that they do not verify it. Now, probably it's fine, so they are also fine with this. And something that I tell them is that, if it was the case that you were to prepare your papers and your assignments using AI only and not verifying them, then what I might do, I might check them in this very same way. But if this is the case, then the university doesn't need anyone. You are not needed, and I am not needed at the university, and it becomes then the artificial element. So the understanding gap is related to the fact that we've got a lot of knowledge, but little understanding, and the process is not valued anymore because you have all the knowledge with the click of your fingers. And I believe this is also something that puts teachers under a huge pressure, because we need to ask ourselves this question, what do I teach? And the answer used to be fairly simple. I teach what I know. But currently, AI knows more, knows it faster, knows it more confidently, and probably also to a greater extent. So I need to ask myself a question, what can I do that AI can't? And the answer actually is not simple. Because in a way, I thought about three different options. Option number one, and this is the worst option, I could be like the search engine, but the slower version of a search engine. The second one, being a knowledge curator, so somebody who selects knowledge for people and tells them, probably this is something that you might consider knowing from the vast knowledge that is available. Or maybe something even harder to define, and by this I mean someone who helps people be more critical, who helps people look for an answer when things just do not add up together well, or when the answer seems to be right, but is not like this. The third challenge that I would like to talk to you about, I call it the responsibility gap, decisions without consequences. And this is the gap that is actually between making a decision and owning the consequences and being accountable for the consequences. Students quite often say, we want something real, practical, real examples. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes teachers do respond. So sometimes I bring students case studies from real companies. And these are things that in companies, it took people days or sometimes weeks to solve it. Students get the data, get the information, but what happens is that the answer comes there and it's there in 3 minutes. And quite often it is a radical answer. For example, fire this guy, take him out of the team, exit the market, change the strategy completely, just pivot the strategy. And the reason behind those answers is exactly this gap related to the fact that students do not own consequences of that events. Similarly, in communication class, you tell them, okay, so you will be negotiating with a business partner. This is what you should do and what you should focus on. This is what your company wants. Then they enter the communication scenario. They come back with a result that is suboptimal for their company, and they say, well, there wasn't even a thing to argue about with the second party. And then when I ask them, okay, but how would you report this result to your boss? What would you tell this person? Because you have a suboptimal result. They say, well, but this conversation will not take place because it doesn't. And this is the exact gap where the pressure that is put on teachers somehow becomes a trap itself. So students tell us, give us something very practical, but on the other hand, when they get it, they don't own the consequences of the decisions that they are making. So this is exactly that. And I have this running joke during my classes. I tell sometimes students, let's start a startup. We will be solving problems of real companies. Sometimes people need weeks to figure out what to do, and we'll be solving all those problems in 3 minutes. We'll be earning money. We'll tell different organizations, just give us your problems, and this is what we are going to do. Obviously, this is just a joke, and hopefully both me and my students smile when they hear it. But I think it makes a point because to an extent, it is real and connected to that. So I wanted to talk to you about the challenges that teachers are facing, the challenges from my experience. But at the same time, what I promised you a proposal. And this proposal, this is not a manifesto. This is not a system reform. This is something for tomorrow morning that I believe can be done, and very much is related to an attitude that teachers can have. So the first part, be relaxed but rigorous in a way. These are not contradictions. The atmosphere during the classes can be good. There can be psychological safety. People can feel confident saying what they think and what they believe. And at the same time, you can be demanding from them. So treating people in a relaxed way is something good. Demanding is how you respect them at the same time. Number two, think about yourself and students as people having the same problem. We are all in the same situation. with, for example, AI changing so many things for us. We have the same problem to be solved, and I believe that much more connects us than divides us. And this very way of thinking is probably a good starting point. Number 3, understanding, not answers. And what I mean by here, make sure that you put emphasis on the process, not on the answers themselves, but also how people reach this process and in their ability to explain this as a condition for them to, for example, pass the course. And the 4th one is the one that I believe is to a greatest extent connected to the subject of what I am talking about, the topic of this presentation, because I believe that another option is just to tell the truth and to say that the reality gap exists, that the decisions that they are going to make during the class does not carry the way similar to the decisions that are made in real company, that we are all facing the problems with teachers asking themselves this question, how can they give an advantage over AI? And just to be honest and tell the truth, and exactly tell students as well that the way in which you design the class, what you expect from them, comes exactly from this, comes from your honesty. And I just would like to finish my presentation with a short example, sharing a personal story. This was the last class during the semester for me. And for this group of students, this was actually the last class of their studies. So, after exiting the room, after walking out, they just finished their studies. And there was one student, she walked out of the room with everyone else, but then she came back, and at the door she said, I just wanted to say, it was nice to watch someone who likes their job. So she didn't say, I loved the class. She didn't say, I learned much. She didn't say, it profoundly changed the way I think. But she just said that, attending my class and being a part of it, she enjoyed watching someone who likes the job. And it was about me, this comment. So this is certainly not a method, but probably one of the greatest compliments I got during my almost 20 years career. I'm not sure if something that will work, but something that I'll take. Thank you very much.